Hello ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls, innies, outies, and of course my in-betweener friends. My name's Dan, welcome back to another PAP Reports. Today is Monday, April the 20th, 2020. Today we have probably the most stories of any previous PAP Reports. So let's get into it. First up today, we have reports coming out of Scotland over the weekend into prison guards at Edinburgh's HMP Sawton, who were under investigation into the death of Allan Marshall, who died on the 28th of March 2015 after suffering multiple injuries at the hands of prison guards, injuries so severe he had to be put into an induced coma. The information is that staff at the prison involved in attempting to place the 30-year-old under their control before he died are the first to be granted immunity in 5 years of prison death investigations. A decision that doesn't sit well with Scottish Labour's Justice spokesman James Kelly, who has demanded that Lord Advocate James Wolfe, Scotland's most senior prosecutor who made the decision, explain the decision. Allan was being held in prison after he appeared at Hamilton Sheriff Court on a breach of the peace charge and remanded in custody because of unpaid fines. He was dragged naked, feet first and face down across a corridor with a towel over his face. He suffered multiple injuries and died 4 days later in Edinburgh Royal Infirmary whilst in an induced coma. One 40-year-old prisoner who was there and saw these actions through the hatch on his cell door said that he was so traumatised by what he had seen, he required sleeping tablets because of nightmares. He recalled how he shouted at the guards from behind his locked door during the incident. The former prisoner added, "I remember shouting, 'You motherfucking murderous bastards, you torturing sadomasochistic bastards, you've killed him.' I remember kicking my door and one of the prison officers asked me if I had heard what went on. I told him I'd seen the whole thing from start to finish. I also said I'd tell the boy's family exactly what I'd seen. I'd never seen restraint with such levels of force, and for so long. I had tears in my eyes seeing what happened. It was a prolonged and sustained torture of a prisoner." In a fatal accident inquiry judgment last August, Sheriff Gordon Liddell described the remand prisoner's death as entirely preventable. But before the inquiry took place, the guards involved were told that there was zero risk of them ending up in the dock. Lord Advocate James Wolfe responded to a letter from Holyrood's Justice Committee in March. His reply explained that 246 fatal accident inquiries were concluded between April 1st, 2014 and March 31st, 2019. But it would seem that of these 135 were related to deaths in custody. Mr Marshall's case was the only one where it was decided witnesses would not be prosecuted. What a strange precedent to set, although I guess we'll never know the real reasons behind the decision to let the killers of Allan Marshall escape justice. BAME activists and support organisations are racist. Yep, instead of campaigning against the use of tasers on everyone, which is generally what us racist white folk do, they've decided to kick up a fuss about the use of tasers on BAME people only, quitting the National Police Chief Council's independent taser advisory group in protest, claiming no meaningful action is being taken to address the disproportionate use of stun guns against BAME people. Use of the weapons rose by 39% last year as growing numbers of police were equipped with them, but recent analysis of Home Office figures is said to have found black people in England and Wales were almost 8 times more likely to have tasers used against them by police than white people. But for me, and I research a lot of incidents and see a lot of videos, it's generally black folk that I have seen who tend to have the weapons more than white folk. So, let's see the figures in contrast of the white versus black who have been arrested for possession of or using a weapon, and then we can have a meaningful discussion and establish potentially a link between the two. The human rights group Liberty, Inquest, Stopwatch and the Open Society, and a policing expert Dr Mike Shiner said that a decision announced privately in February to absorb a planned assessment of the disproportionate impact of the use of tasers on ethnic minority people into an officer safety review demonstrated that concerns were not being taken seriously. Claire Collier, Advocacy Director at Liberty, said, "Tasers can and do kill. The rising use of these weapons is alarming and there are serious concerns over how disproportionately they are being used against people of colour. But yet again, there's not a mention of the percentage of blacks or the percentage of whites who are caught in possession of or using a weapon, giving rise to the potential need for a taser use. Reports suggest that of the 22,059 occasions tasers were used in 2018 to 2019, 4,381 of the incidents involved black people, with discharges in 443 cases, where white people were subject to the use of tasers by police in 14,562 cases, with 1,800 discharges. Using 2011 census data, Shiner's analysis showed black people are 7.7 times more likely to have the weapons used against them. Why are these groups not advocating for the removal of tasers against all citizens of this country, rather than simply trying to make it all about race? And we who point these things out are the ones that are called racist. Finally, someone talking about a complete disregard for public safety and the coronavirus regulation breaches by the police. Not exactly who you would expect it to be coming from either, but Sadiq Khan has expressed his concerns over the failure to observe social distancing after a video of the Westminster Bridge clap for carers was shared online. Why is it that no one listens to us mere peasants? When we bring these issues up, you know, it's taken weeks for somebody up top to stumble across it themselves rather than listening to the public. Oh wait, I know. Because they don't want to publicly have to thank one of the UK's inmates for bringing it to light. Of course, let's continue for weeks creating potential threat to others rather than listening to someone weeks ago and actually taking action. The video, which showed hundreds of people and police on the bridge all ignoring the social distancing guidelines, caused quite a stir, although the Metropolitan Police said, "We regularly remind our officers of the importance of social distancing where practical." Sadiq Khan told LBC Radio, "I am equally concerned that the social distancing rules don't seem to have been observed. I suspect, and I have no confirmation, that the Met and London Ambulance Service will be asking these kind of questions in relation to this. The police have a difficult job to make sure the rules are observed, and I think they will both be asking the questions. But of course, the Met nor the London Ambulance Service or the NHS will make a fuss, will they? Because it's all about them. Why would they want this kind of thing to stop? Excuses will no doubt be made and the incident will be forgotten, and Cressida Dick will wipe the sweat from her brow and say, got away with another one." Now, I remind all of my viewers that if you see the police acting in a manner that breaches the regulations that are imposed on the rest of us, obviously so long as it's not a situation where they have to breach them, such as an arrest or a life-threatening situation, record it, film it. Although you should be doing that anyway if you see the police interactions. Get their collar numbers if you can, and let's make sure that these people are shamed the way that they like to shame us. Now, as you all know by now, PC 3539 Needham from Lancashire Police has become a bit of an internet sensation over the weekend after threatening to commit perjury and make up charges against a member of the public in order to punish them.
Give me the keys. Sit in your car, shut up. And if you want to fucking step to me and puff in your chest out and stuff like that, then fine, I'll lock you up. We'll do that, shall we? I'll make something up. Public order. Screw up to a police officer. Shall I do that? Who are they going to believe, me or you? Who are they going to believe, me or you?
Unlike many of the incidents we share here in the channel outside of the PAP reports, this one actually made it to the mainstream media. Reports are, and I can confirm this at least because I've left them a reply myself, that Lancashire Police have apologised to the man who was threatened and say they will be engaging with him over the coming days, no doubt to persuade him not to take action. PC Needham can be seen stepping close to the man saying, "If you want to fucking step to me and push your chest out and something like that, then fine, I'll lock you up. We'll do that, shall we?" When the member of the public then protests his innocence, insisting he's done nothing wrong, Needham then adds,
"I'll make something up. Public order. Screw up to a police officer. Shall I do that? Who are they going to believe, me or you? Who are they going to believe, me or you?"
Lancashire Police has confirmed that the member of the public deserves an apology and that professional cover-ups, professional standards, that's the one, are looking into the incident. Considering this is, as I put in my tweet, conspiracy to commit perjury, corrupt or other improper exercise of police powers and privileges, breaches of every police code of ethics and professional standards of behaviour, I cannot imagine how this cannot make it to a criminal charge against PC 3539 Needham. But no doubt they'll find some way to get him off the hook. Chief Constable Andy Rhodes said in the statement, the footage shows language and behaviour from one officer which were completely unacceptable, and for this I apologise without reservation. We recognise the impact that this behaviour will have had both on the young man concerned and on the hard-earned trust and confidence of the wider public, particularly the comments about making offences up. It only takes one incident like this to undo the hard work of so many. Greater Manchester police constables were parked up on Parswood Road near to the junction with School Grove in Ladybarn around 5 PM on Friday afternoon while they were out on patrol in the local park when two lads on a moped decided to throw a brick at their car, smashing the windscreen. The reports in mainstream media say this was done for no apparent reason, and although I don't and cannot condone criminal acts against the police, are people really suggesting it's a random act with no rhyme or reason? When we see as many criminal acts committed against the public by many police, they wonder why retaliation is occurring. Writing on the Greater Manchester Police Facebook page for Fallowfield, Withington, Levenshulme and Burnage, police expressed their frustration at the mindless act, saying, "Today, two males on a moped decided throwing a brick at a police car windscreen was the best use of their time today. Not exactly an essential journey or a daily exercise routine to be proud of. Strangely enough, we do not have an unlimited supply of police vehicles, and this takes one off the road and are able to respond to incidents. It wastes police time sorting it out, fixing it, transporting it, officers, criming it, investigating, and now me here appealing to the public for help on the matter to help us identify these clowns. Investigations are ongoing and more CCTV is being recovered, but for now we are appealing to the majority of the general public out there who will be as appalled and outraged by this incident as we are, and will get in touch if they know the identity of these males. We are still coming into work putting ourselves and our families at risk, and the public, to keep the people of South Manchester safe, and the last thing we should be, or any item of property, is attacked and damaged whilst trying to do our job. And the problem is, in many cases, you're not doing your job, but doing the bidding of the upper echelon, turning their wishes into finable offences and arrests rather than actually doing your jobs and enforcing laws. Now, with police so keen to enforce the new powers that they've been bestowed with, and even powers that they haven't been given, it makes you wonder why Kent Police allowed a funeral to go ahead when reports of about 150 people were to attend. Kent Police were warned in advance about the gathering in Sittingbourne, but allowed it to go ahead because they were given very little notice. They said they were only informed the night before, but did not get a chance to remind those involved of social distancing measures. Chief Inspector Neil Loudon said Kent Police was afforded very little notice about this large gathering, and as such a decision was made to allow the funeral to go ahead during what was no doubt a difficult time for those who had lost a loved one. So surely the police should be held accountable for aiding and abetting an act that goes against the new legislation. The funeral was on Thursday and was attended by a large number of motorcyclists. Two men aged 24 and 32 were arrested on suspicion of dangerous driving and driving without a licence. Now, I'm genuinely surprised the police didn't roll out a huge operation to attend in force, detain and fine as many people as they can, regardless to the reason why they were there in the first place. I mean, what an easy way to hit their daily quota of fines. It could have been done in less than an hour. Chief Inspector Leldon said that officers would be in touch with those who were not following rules, and they will be reminded of their personal responsibilities during these unprecedented times. He said there will be an increased police presence in the area over the coming days to provide reassurance. Provide reassurance of what exactly? That the mere presence of police will frighten the coronavirus enough to leave town? Our investigation continues, he said, and where there are clear acts of antisocial behaviour and persistent breaches of coronavirus legislation, we will seek to identify and prosecute these. The government has allowed funerals to go ahead during the coronavirus pandemic, but it says only members of the deceased person's household or close family should attend so that a 2 metre distance can be maintained. I've said it in recent videos, you could get 100, 200 people in a gathering providing they're 2 metres apart. What does it matter? Before the weekend I spoke in PAP Reports that guidance had been issued into what would constitute a reasonable excuse to leave your house. I did break it down a little and show just how stupid the guidance was. In fact, almost everything they said could be worked to the favour of the member of the public being questioned by police. Well, it seems I was right, because now the National Rural Crime Network, which represents over 30 police and crime commissioners who oversee countryside areas, has called for an urgent review of the latest advice. The document, which emerged on Thursday and was sent to police forces last week, amid concerns some officers were misunderstanding the new powers, lists a string of scenarios which were likely to be considered reasonable under the coronavirus lockdown rules. Remember, that's rules and not legislation or law. These include driving to the countryside and walking, when far more time is spent walking than driving, and stopping to rest or eat lunch while on a long walk. It also made clear to police that it is lawful to drive somewhere to exercise. Julie Mulligan, the Police and Crime Commissioner for North Yorkshire and the National Rural Crime Network chairwoman, said the main message from government and scientists is that to tackle coronavirus, we need to stay at home. These new guidelines go completely against that and are hugely unhelpful in the efforts we are making in rural Britain to stop people travelling to our communities and spreading this virus. Saying individuals and families can travel long distances into the countryside has alarmed many for whom that is their home. It has the potential to strain services in already struggling communities, stretches police resources and even adds strain to the NHS, which is working so hard to keep us all safe. Problem is, those people who are alarmed and are the very ones who struggle to think for themselves and simply bend over, lube up and grit their teeth whenever a new problem is announced. College of Policing insisted it was not new national guidance and a message for the public hasn't changed, although described as a really useful practical guide. The examples given are not set out specifically in law under the regulations, and the document says each case must be considered individually. It adds some public statements made soon after the adoption of the regulations suggested that members of the public could only leave their homes if essential to do so. However, this is not the test set out in the regulations, and there is no legal basis for a requirement in those terms to be imposed. According to the document, incidents also likely to be reasonable include buying luxury items and alcohol, exercising more than once a day, moving to a friend's address for several days to allow cooling off following arguments at home, and buying tools and supplies for repairs and maintenance. The spokesman for the National Police Chief Council said, while there is nothing in the legislation that prevents people from driving to exercise, remember that, police forces and the government have rightly continued to advise the public not to travel long distances in the car to exercise. Therefore, forces who have advised this are not out of step with the CPS guidance. Officers should continue to use discretion and judgment in deciding what is and what isn't necessary and reasonable in the circumstances, being mindful of the purpose of those regulations to prevent transmission of infection. So, remember, when you get pulled over or stopped in the street, you are under no legal obligation to speak, and that is your best defence. I'm not suggesting people should do anything to break the law, but guidance and advice are not law. And until the police and the government realise that they cannot enforce advice, and they should not be trying to unlawfully impose their opinions on us, then people will continue to push back. In fact, this entire situation could have been such a fantastic PR boost for the police, taking some time to regain some of the respect that they've lost over the years. But instead of using their brains, many of them have simply reverted back to basic drone mentality, where discretion and common sense goes right out the window and they simply see arrests or fine statistics. What an absolute shame. And as if to prove my point, figures released on Wednesday, April the 15th by the National Police Chief Council showed that Surrey Police handed out 205 fixed penalty notices from March 27th until April 13th. Now, some of the reasons given for being out are ludicrous, and the people using them deserve to be fined for making such idiotic statements. For example, in order to fly a model aeroplane. Again, as I go through these reports from mainstream media, I see a recurring theme of them using this phrase. Current restrictions allow for an hour of exercise and an essential shop as infrequently as possible. Problem is, unless you live in Wales, restrictions do not allow for 1 hour of exercise per day. In fact, it was a recommendation, but there is nothing that prevents anyone, unless from Wales, sorry Welshies, from going out multiple times a day and exercising. And this continued use of this false information is only serving to annoy people more and give the police the same belief that 1 hour is all that's permitted when it's not. Now, I'm not going to go through the points again in this video, but if you check the link in the description or up here, you'll find a video where I discuss this in more detail. Greater Manchester Police are earning the respect again after paying out for a mobile interactive billboard which appears to be playing videos featuring celebrities, reinforcing the message to stay at home. The mobile billboard, which started being used over the weekend, is said to be travelling across the region over coming weeks and will play messages from celebrities and key workers, which Greater Manchester Police have said is aimed at reaching people whilst out in their gardens, exercising or visiting supermarkets, to reinforce the importance of the government message to stay home, protect the NHS and save lives. Assistant Chief Constable Chris Sykes of Greater Manchester Police said, "As we enter our 5th week of lockdown, there is a concern that people could be tempted to flout the restrictions, particularly as the warm weather is set to continue. It is vitally important that we all continue to play our part in the fight against this terrible virus and stay at home so that we don't undo the work that has already taken place to protect the NHS and save lives. Officers continue to patrol communities, but the digital advertising vans provide us with an additional opportunity to ensure that the very important Stay Home campaign is seen by as many people as possible from a safe social distance. I appreciate it is a truly difficult time for us all, and our lives are very different to how they were a few weeks ago. But I'm extremely grateful for the majority of residents across Greater Manchester who are adhering to the government restrictions. The kindness and support that our officers have seen whilst on duty has not gone unnoticed, and it is very much appreciated during this period of uncertainty. However, personally, I wonder how much of the public money has been spent on this initiative. Who's going to be driving it? Are they paying for a driver or taking a police constable off the beat in order to drive it? You know, these are questions that I would have asked. But they're also questions that have failed to cross the minds of the mainstream media reporters. Money spent on this when the message is pumped into our heads 100 times a day already could be better spent on helping support the vulnerable members of the community or paying for personal protective equipment. But, you know, what good is that? It doesn't put the police front and centre in the limelight, does it? Besides, when Greater Manchester Police suggest that this effort is aimed at reaching people whilst in their gardens or exercising, why is it so many police forces are actually against people being in their gardens or out exercising? And this brings me nicely into the next report. West Midlands Police have released footage of a constable interacting with a family who were in their garden eating their Good Friday dinner, with the force and media reports calling them out as blazingly flouting the regulations.
What's going on, guys?
You need to put all this away.
I'm taking you to all live here.
Yeah.
Sorry? What a report. You know the situation at the moment. Everyone's meant to be in their houses. What's going on here then?
I put this in the house.
Police in Birmingham pulled up outside the house where the family were eating kebabs and chips around dining tables. One officer asks the group, "What's going on, guys? You need to put this all away. You know the situation at the moment. Everyone is meant to be in their houses. What's going on here then?" And yet again, another misinterpretation of the legislation, as there is nothing to suggest that everyone is meant to be in their houses. This also shows the inconsistency between police forces across the country, as Greater Manchester Police's new mobile billboard initiative is aimed at people like this in their gardens. Media reports that more than 1,429 people have died from coronavirus in the West Midlands, saying that so far it makes it the worst hit area outside of London. However, as most of us know, having COVID-19 and dying from COVID-19 are currently classed as the same thing based on the World Health Organisation's guidance into recording deaths. West Midlands Police say patrols have been targeting people breaking the rules after receiving tip-offs from members of the public online. And it's always nice to see the grasses are still in full force, turning against their neighbours rather than sticking together. A spokesperson said, where we've had reports online of people not following the rules, we've used this information to target our patrols. Sergeant Dave Taylor said, to police this, which is something we've never had to do before, we're trying to use a common sense approach with people. And there we have it, yet again, police lying about having common sense. Finally, the Metropolitan Police are facing a lawsuit over the death of PC Keith Palmer, who was stabbed to death during the Westminster terror attacks in 2017. Coroner Mark Lucraft QC ruled that Palmer could still be alive if marksmen were stationed with him at the time of the atrocity. Instead, they were 80 yards away when 52-year-old Khalid Masood stabbed him with two 12-inch knives at the gates of Parliament in March 2017. The Met Police have always refused to accept responsibility, and PC Palmer's family said after the inquest, senior officers seem to have closed ranks. Surprised? Khalid Masood mowed down Kurt Cochran, Aisha Fraid, Leslie Rhodes and Andrea Christie on Westminster Bridge before attacking PC Palmer. All were ruled to have been unlawfully killed. Mr. Lucraft said due to shortcomings, armed police officers were not in close proximity to the gates. Had they been there, they may have been able to prevent PC Palmer suffering fatal injuries. Now remember folks, this is the same incident that saw Sir Craig Mackay, the then acting head of the Metropolitan Police Service, lock himself in a car while Keith Palmer was getting stabbed up just metres away. A complete act of cowardice that was actually supported by the force at the time, as he had no protective equipment and no backbone either, let's not forget that. And bearing in mind that not helping a constable can constitute a criminal offence, I wonder if the force will eventually accept responsibility in order to continue to cover up and ignore the fact that Mackay ignored a constable in need. A big thank you to Patreon supporters Adi, Audrey, Carl, Copwatch UK, Danielle, Dave, Dean, Holly, Ian, Jay, Marty Lad, Mr. Mina, Peter, President Trump and Rich. Now I'm not going to read out all of the names if I start getting any more Patreon supporters, but I want to make sure that I recognise those who are supporting the channel. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. Please like, share, comment and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts, as I know many of you will. And until next time, stay safe, look after each other, film the police and other officials. Good night all. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you like the content and you'd like to help support the channel, you can do so. In the description of every video there are some links to ways that you're able to help support the channel so I can continue putting out content. If you're unable to help us in that way, hit that subscribe button up the top there. If you haven't already, become a subscriber. That is support enough. Share the videos, comment, like, it all helps. If you're looking for something else to watch, up top there is my latest video. Down the bottom there is a video that YouTube recommends for you.